Welcome everyone to our first podcast, episode 1 of a long journey, a very long journey. Before starting, I want to explain you guys how this podcast will work. I will post one podcast every week and it will be available on Spotify and YouTube. For the people who don't really know what a podcast is, it's just a video where people talk about a subject and answer questions at the same time. Today is just me on the podcast, but in the next episodes we will have some guests so we can see two sides of each story with two different opinions. So yeah, that will be interesting. I will post every day an Instagram story where you can ask me questions or give me suggestions about what I should talk in my next podcasts. I already got a couple of questions and I will answer them at the end of this podcast. So yeah, let's start after a quick intro.
Every transformation always gets worse before it gets better. It's supposed to be that way.
Keep going. Keep going. Don't quit. You're already in pain. You're already struggling. Get something for your pain. It doesn't make sense to go through pain and then not get nothing on the other side of it.
Woo! Ain't chasing a bitch, I'm chasing a dream. You know the routine. Oh damn, look what a nigga that made of the team. You know the routine. I know why they jealous, I be on the type of stuff they never seen. You know the routine. Whole nother level, I shit on the niggas and ain't even mean. Whoa, whoa. Young nigga blowing all money, spending million, make back. Whoa. Made enough off all hustle, I don't even got.
So, Harris Lutriotis asked me on Instagram to talk in this podcast about what is the best type of training to decrease the risk of getting injured. Injuries really sucks. Since I started with sports, I couldn't have one season without injuries. My biggest one was 2 years ago, I think. So I got a knee surgery and I had to walk in crunches for 6 weeks, and after that I did some kinesiotherapy, but the biggest problem was that I had to wear a plaster, or I don't know how you say it in English. So yeah, my leg wasn't moving for 6 weeks. I lost all of my muscle mass and this created an imbalance. I had my right leg that was twice as big as my left leg, and because of this I started to have ankle issues and hip problems. So in total the injury lasted 2 to 3 years. Let's first talk about the most common injuries in sports and then see what the best type of training is to decrease the risk of getting injured. Every sport is different. It has different movements and different key muscle groups. For example, football and soccer is played on a big field. Basketball and indoor soccer is played on a smaller field. The main muscles for on a big field are the hamstrings. Soccer and football players will mostly have muscle strains and ligament sprains due to the quick changes in direction, lateral movements, and the rapid acceleration and decelerations involved in the sport. The hamstrings, adductors and other muscles around the hip and the thigh are mostly injured. Bruises are also common due to contact with other players on the pitch. So now let's talk about basketball. Basketball is different. So what's the incidence of a basketball injury? According to a study of high school basketball players by the National Athletic Trainers Association, 22% of all male basketball players sustained at least one time loss injury each year. 42% of the injuries were to the ankle or the foot, 11% to the hip and the thigh, 9% had knee injuries. Sprains were the most common type of injury, 43%. And then general trauma was the second most common type of injury, 22%. So now, what were the causes? 60% of the injuries occurred during practice, highlighting the need to warm up and strap for training. So yeah, let's think about the warm up. Warm up correctly and have less injuries. Next, 59% of game-related injuries occurred during the second half of the game, which identifies fatigue as a predisposing factor. So, after comparing the injuries we have in different sports, we can see where the differences are. As I already said, football and soccer have more hamstrings and groin injuries. Then we have basketball. 42% of the injuries are to the ankle and 9% to the knees. Let's see now what those athletes could have done better to avoid those injuries. In a study, researchers in Copenhagen looked at 26,000 people who engaged in strength training stretching, balance exercises, or programs that combined more than one exercise type. The key results: proprioception lowered injuries by 45%, stretching reduced injuries by only 4%, and strength training lowered risk by a whopping 69%, making it the clear winner in terms of injury prevention. Let's first talk about the winner: strength training. Why is this the best way to decrease the risk of getting injured? Well, it's simple. Strength training improves the strength of the muscles, tendons, and even the ligaments and the bones. The stronger muscles and tendons help hold the body in proper alignment and protect the bones and joints when moving or under impact. The bones become stronger due to the overload placed on them during training, and the ligaments become more flexible and better at absorbing the shock applied to them during dynamic movements. The problem is, when an area of the body is used less during an activity, it may become weak compared to the other areas. This can become a problem when that area is called into play suddenly during an activity. For example, your knees are not strong and stable, and you must make a quick change of direction during a basketball game. That area cannot handle the sudden stress placed on it, and an injury occurs. Then there are muscle imbalances, like the one I had after my knee surgery. Muscle imbalances are one of the most common causes of injuries in athletics. When one muscle or muscle group becomes stronger than its opposing group, the weaker muscle becomes fatigued quicker and the chance is bigger to get injured. A forceful contraction near maximal output from the stronger muscle can also cause damage to the weaker opposing muscle due to the inability to counter the force. Muscle imbalances also affect the joints and bones due to an abnormal pull, causing the joint to move in an unnatural pattern. The stronger muscles will cause the joint to pull in that direction, causing a stretching of the opposing ligaments and a tightening of the supporting ones. These can lead to chronic pain and an unnatural wearing of the bones. It's not because I said strength training is the best type of training to decrease the risk of getting injured that you have to rush to the gym and perform 10 sets of heavy back squats and deadlifts. Firstly, to avoid injury, it is essential that proper form be used in all exercises. Keeping the body in proper alignment while exercising will minimize the injury chances. Starting with light weights or resistance and developing proper form before increasing the resistance is important. When increasing the resistance, it is important to do in small increments and only when the desired number of repetitions can be performed in correct form. Secondly, rest plays a crucial role in the safety of a training program. Performing strength training exercises for the same muscle groups without rest in between the training sessions can lead to overtraining. Overtraining will result in the muscles being unable to repair properly and not being ready for additional work. This can lead to chronic injuries. The muscle repair and become stronger during rest, not during the workout. And lastly, a correct warm-up will help to prepare the muscles and tendons for any strength training exercises. Without a proper warm-up, the muscles and tendons may be tight and stiff. Before any strength training activity, be sure to warm up all the muscles and tendons that will be used during the workout. The best way to use strength training to work on injury prevention is single leg training. You can work your way up. Start with simple exercises. The people who are watching my podcast on YouTube will be able to see the exercises I will give them. So my top 3 strength exercises for knee injuries are bended knee extensions, single leg box squats, and single leg heel touches. The bended knee extension is a simple exercise you can add to your early rehab after a knee injury or just in your daily strength sessions. The single leg box squat is my favorite single leg exercise. Start doing this exercise just with your own body weight. The key to mastering this exercise is when you are lowering yourself, don't let your body fall. You must control the movement and go slowly down. After mastering the exercise, add dumbbells or a barbell to the exercise or put a lower box. The third exercise is the heel touches. Same thing as with the single leg box squats. Start just with your body weight. Then second step, add the resistance band. And last step, add dumbbells or a barbell. Well, I think we talked enough about strength training. Let's go on and talk about proprioception. Besides balance and awareness, proprioception is what helps you control your body movement. Without it, even walking becomes difficult. Imagine having to look at your legs as you walk and actively concentrate on putting one foot in front of the other. Running may seem impossible. However, with proprioception, you're able to do this almost without thinking. And with improving your proprioception, you will be able to do this more efficiently and with better positioning. Developing proprioception plays an important role in injury prevention. There is a study that followed a professional basketball team for 6 years, studying how proprioception, along with balance and strength training, affected their injury risk. It turns out that incorporating proprioception-specific exercises into the training program decreased the risk of ankle sprains by 81%. Athletes also reduced their lower back pain by almost 78% and knee sprains by 65%. But how does proprioception help in sports? It gives you better control over your body. In order to move quickly, accelerate and decelerate, change direction, balance, etc., you need to know how and when your body moves. Most importantly, you need control. The better your proprioception is, the better control you have over your body's movements. Your movement also becomes more efficient, powerful, and strong. It takes a lot of energy to constantly correct movements or to move incorrectly and inefficiently. Moreover, with improved proprioception, you will eventually be moving correctly without too much concentration. Thirdly, it improves your balance. This is important when you need to balance on one leg or hop from leg to leg. This is used a lot in sports like basketball. And lastly, you can perform multiple different actions at the same time without having to think about each one separately. As a basketball player, this means running and dribbling or shooting efficiently and precisely. There are many exercises you can do to improve proprioception. The point of doing exercises that work on proprioception is to improve spatial awareness, balance, and sense of movement and joint position. Most of these exercises are very similar to stability and balance training for instability. I incorporate proprioception exercises in each session I have with my athletes, even if it's just a single leg balance exercise in the warm-up. The way you can start building up a good balance is by holding your balance for 30 seconds to 1 minute on one leg. I remember one time when I had an ankle sprain, my doctor told me to brush my teeth while holding my balance on one leg, and believe me, this really helps. Secondly, after mastering your single leg balance for 1 minute, do the same exercise but this time with your eyes closed. And your last stage is dynamic balance exercises. You can use a tennis ball or a Bosu ball to do such exercises. The two exercises shown on YouTube are the diamond balance drill and the single leg Bosu ball plate twist. The diamond balance drill is advanced. Put a Bosu ball surrounded by 4 cones around it in the shape of a diamond. Hold your balance on one leg and lower yourself to touch each cone. The second exercise is the single leg Bosu ball plate twist. This one is also cool as it works your balance and activates your core during the exercise. Hold your balance on one leg on the Bosu ball, twist the plate and catch it back. 10 reps on each side. So yeah, that was it for proprioception. So we already talked about strength training, we just talked about proprioception, and now we have stretching. On Instagram also someone asked me if stretching is good or bad. So yeah, people are getting frustrated as they don't know anymore what to do, so let's talk about this subject. Stretching. So it is generally accepted that increasing the flexibility of a muscle tendon unit promotes better performance and decreases the number of injuries. Stretching exercises are included in warm-up and cooling down exercises. Several authors have suggested that stretching has a beneficial effect on injury prevention. In contrast, clinical evidence suggesting that stretching before exercise does not prevent injuries has also been reported. What stretching actually does is reduce the pain you feel with a stretch, meaning you improve your tolerance to stretch through the sensation you feel. So, the more you do, the further you can stretch. However, the majority of evidence shows that it is not because anything has changed within the muscle or that it has become longer, It's because you can stretch further before you feel the same level of stretch sensation. Therefore, stretching is not enough to change your muscle or tendon to make the tissue stronger. To reduce the risk or overcome pain and injury, you need to increase the thickness or robustness of the tissue to make it stronger, but when stretching, the thickness and robustness stay the same. So, I'm sure you are asking yourself this question now: static stretching during the warm-up or not? This has perhaps been the largest debate with regards to warming up over the past several decades. Even if it has always been a cornerstone component of warming up as a method to decrease injury risk and improve performance, there is little evidence, if any, to indicate that pre- or post-exercise static stretching reduces injury. Additionally, there is growing research to suggest that pre-exercise static stretching also compromises subsequent performance by reducing force production, power output, running speed, reaction time, and strength endurance. Dynamic stretching, however, has been consistently shown to improve subsequent performance. Additionally, because dynamic stretching requires the muscle to activate through a range of movement, it is believed that this contributes to the neural activation requirements of warm-ups. As a result, dynamic stretching may be the most appropriate form of mobilization during warm-ups for most activities and sports which are dynamic in nature. The ideal warm-up should look like this. So start with a full body foam rolling, then 15 minutes of cycling or running. After that, perform 1 to 2 balance drills and end your warm-up with key muscle activation. My favorite exercise to warm up is a dynamic hamstring stretch. It's like the same thing as a toe reach, but you are performing it dynamically. I usually also do a mini band routine like banded side steps or kickbacks. You can also do some mobility exercises. That's also perfect to open up them hips before starting your training. So yeah, you got enough choice. Of course, stretching could be perfect in other sports like gymnastics or dancing, for example. I am more talking for soccer, football and basketball players. What I do instead of static stretching is full range of motion training. There is a misconception that strength training automatically makes athletes bulky and stiff. However, strength training at a full range of motion is highly effective at increasing flexibility and mobility. Several recent studies have found that strength training can increase range of motion equal to, and in some cases greater than, static stretching. This is something Olympic lifters have known for decades. Many Olympic lifters rarely stretch but possess incredible mobility because they train their end ranges. Everyone wants their workouts to be more efficient. Training with a greater range of motion is strength, flexibility, and mobility training all in one. My top 3 exercises for full range of motions are: on the first place, the front foot elevated split squat, on the second place, the banded end range holds, and on the last place, the heel elevated deep squat. Before ending this episode, I will answer a last question. So, Suki Verk asked me what the best exercise is to loosen up the hamstrings. I'm not going to lie, using the foam roller helps the best on me. Another thing that also helps a lot is by working other areas to relax the hamstrings. So, we talked about the most common injuries in sports. We talked about the best type of training to decrease the risk of getting injured, and I answered some questions. Before ending this podcast, I will give the shout out of the day to my guy, Suki Verk. Thanks for all the support, man. I will post again an Insta story where you can ask all the questions you want. I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode and that you will use all this knowledge in your daily routine. See you soon.
If you do it though, because it's hard, it's an uphill battle. It's a path less taken, not the beaten path everyone else takes. It's a path that leads a character. The champions, guys. It's not their potential, it's not their genetics. It's their perseverance to always show up, always willing to fail, because in failure, that's part of success. Success is not, a marathon of life with just ups. Success is formulated through failures.